the Buddha and his senior disciples like Shariputra like to talk about the Second Noble Truth in terms of consumption. Consumption. The Buddha spoke about 4 kinds of food, 4 kinds of nutriments. The first kind of nutriment is called edible food. You take in by the way of the mouth. And the Buddha urges us to consume only items that bring about lightness, healing, nourishment into our body and into our mind. And the second kind of food is called sensory impression. These kind of nutriment come through the way of the eyes, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. You consume by reading articles. When you read an article, you consume. And that article may contain a lot of toxins like craving, violence, fear, discrimination, hate. When you watch television, you consume, because the TV program may be full of poisons. When you drive through the city, you consume, because what you see in terms of advertisement, what you hear in terms of advertisement, are also items of consumption. You don't want to consume, but they force you to consume. Driving through the city, you have to see these kind of publicity. And that is why mindfulness helps us to protect ourselves by the practice of mindful consumption, and that is the object of the 5th mindfulness training. Our young people watch television several hours a day, maybe 2, maybe 3 or more, because their parents are so busy. And while watching television, they allow the seed of craving, of violence in themselves to be watered. They keep growing. And this is very dangerous. Even conversation may be highly toxic. What the other person say may be full of hate, of despair. And after 1 hour of listening to him or to her, you feel paralyzed, so much toxin in what she said. And that's why don't listen too much to that kind of conversation. And if you are a psychotherapist, it's not wise that you spend all day listening to the suffering of the people. Because you have seed of suffering in you, and if you continue to listen to them, the seed of suffering in you will be watered again and again, and someday you get sick and you go to another therapist. And that is why the practice of a therapist is to devote enough time to get in touch with paradise. There must be hours for him or her to practice walking, sitting, getting in touch with the wonders of life for her, for their nourishment, solidity, so that the therapist will have enough strength to do the work, listening to the suffering. And you have to know your limit. If your capacity is to receive 6% a day, don't try to do more than 6%. You burn out. Your suffering will increase to the point that you will not be able to continue. That is why, as a therapist, you have to practice like this. Get in touch with the third noble truth. Get in touch with the refreshing and healing elements to nourish yourself. Using mindfulness in order to look deeply into the source of well-being and practice mindful consumption so that the negative seeds in you will not be watered. We have 6 doors. To ward. We have posted a inspector, a soldier in front of each door. The door of eyes, the door of the ear, the door of the nose, the door of the tongue, the door of the body, and the door of the mind. And do not allow the enemies to penetrate into your citadel. That is the practice of mindful consumption. You select the film, you select the article, you select the music, you select the kind of conversation that will not bring toxins, poisons into yourself. This is the practice of self-protection, and the protection of your family, of your community is very urgent. Step number 1, the 5th mindfulness training. The basic practice for you and for your community. If you don't, and then they grow very big, and they tend to push the door of mind consciousness to come up. Usually, we say that store consciousness is like the basement, and mind consciousness is like the living room. And anything you don't like, you put in the basement. You want to keep the living room beautiful, but the blocks of suffering in you, they don't want to stay in the cave, in the basement. If they have become so strong, they just push the door and settle here without your invitation. Especially during the night, when you have no means of control, they push the door and go into mind consciousness. And during the day also, the violence, the craving, the hate, the anger are pushing hard, because you have allowed them to grow every day by the way of unmindful consumption. And that is why you try to resist, you try to close the door very firm. You set up a kind of embargo here. You don't allow them to, you repress them. And how do you repress? You try to fill up mind consciousness with other items. And you do that by consumption. You don't feel well. You feel that it's coming up. So you play the music to keep the mind busy. You pick up the telephone and talk. You take the car and drive out. You turn on the television. You do everything in order to keep the living room occupied so that these blocks of pain have no chance to come up. That is the policy that many of us adopt. And the market outside provide us with many items so that they can bring into the living room and fill it up always 24 hours a day in order for you're afraid that they will come up. And you know something, the thing you consume like a television, like a novel, they may also contain a lot of toxins like a craving and hate and violence. And while you are consuming like that, these poisons fall down into store consciousness and make these blocks of suffering grow, because they are the fruit of unmindful consumption in the past. And now unmindful consumption in the present moment continue to make them grow stronger. And this is a very, very dangerous situation. And that is why the first step is to stop this kind of unmindful consumption, preventing these seeds that are already important not to grow anymore. The first step. Mindful consumption. And you have to discuss the strategy of mindful consumption with your beloved one, with members of your family. You have to meet in emergency, like the cabinet of a government, to meet in emergency to discuss a strategy for self-protection of the family, of the couple. Mindful consumption is the object of the fifth mindfulness training.